Yasu Athena. Hello from San Francisco, and welcome to the world's first Greek Mythicist Conference in Athens, Greece. My name is David Fitzgerald. I'm the author of a book called Nailed, 10 Christian Myths that Show Jesus Never Existed at All. It's an exciting time for Jesus myth theory. 16 years ago, it never even crossed my mind to doubt whether Jesus really existed or not. After all, there's so much evidence for him, right? So many eyewitness accounts from his friends and his family, and Christianity shouldn't have been able to start without a real person named Jesus, right? Well, ironically enough, I became a mythicist when I first became curious about separating what we know about the historical Jesus from all the obvious myths and legends that had been invented about him later. But today, I'm more convinced than ever that there never actually was a historical Jesus. I understand that even for atheists, that can be a tough idea to accept. But if you're getting flack for being a mythicist, I'm hoping my new book, Jesus Mything in Action, will help you. Consider this. The majority of biblical scholars are just as wrong about there being a Jesus as they are about there being a God, and for the exact same reason. So perhaps the question shouldn't be how many historians reject mythicism, but maybe how many historians are publicly and contractually obligated to reject mythicism. Besides, shakeups like this happen all the time in science. In biblical studies, especially in biblical studies, yesterday's blasphemy becomes tomorrow's consensus. 200 years ago, it was unthinkable to question if there was a God. 100 years ago, it was unthinkable to question Adam and Eve's historicity. 30 years ago, just 30 years ago, it was unthinkable to question Moses and Abraham's historicity. But today, the cracks in the Jesus story have become too big to ignore, and a paradigm shift is coming. So look at the evidence for yourself. Ratchet down the rhetoric, ignore the snarky comments, focus on the arguments. Look at what our sources really say about Jesus. And be careful, because not all myth theories are created equal. But make no mistake, we already know enough to call the bluff of anyone who tries to tell you that they know how Jesus wants you to act, or think, or vote. This isn't a fight between historicists and mythicists. This is a fight between those who take mythicism seriously, whether they are convinced by it or not, and those who just dismiss it out of hand. Historicists are not the enemy. Christians are not the enemy. Bullshit is the enemy. We don't need Jesus to be a myth. If it turns out we're wrong and someday we get good evidence for Jesus, it's not as if Christianity is going to suddenly start making sense. We'll just be fine as atheists. But Christians, however, do need Jesus not to be a myth. And unfortunately for them, he is a myth. And that's true no matter where the historicist camp or the mythicist camp comes out on top. Because either way, the mythical Jesus of faith gets debunked. The debate over Jesus is really only starting to begin right now, and you're already a part of it. Enjoy the conference.